So many homes in my neighborhood go all out for Halloween, and while in the car with my nephews, they got so excited to see some of these over-the-top decorations. One home had clowns as their theme, and my 6-year-old nephew gets so excited to see Pennywise, since that's one of his favorite wrestlers to play on Xbox. I love knowing he isn't afraid of these clowns like I was. I had a few nightmares where I woke up screaming as a kid because of Pennywise. The original Pennywise, though, who I think looks much scarier than this new version. But what my nephew did have a bad dream about was the scary Elmo character in that Among Us game. Now, I don't know anything about that game, but why they turned Elmo into this terrorizing character is beyond me. But it made me remember that Tickle Me Elmo craze back in the mid-90s, where parents were going crazy trying to buy one, fighting in the toy aisles. I'm not sure if kids would want Elmo in their bed nowadays, since Elmo is now portrayed as scary in this Among Us game. But it turns out something similar to that Tickle Me Elmo craze was all part of the inspiration for the writer of Child's Play, Don Mancini. His father worked in marketing all his life, and Don remembered the craze of the Cabbage Patch Dolls in the 80s, where they just never stayed in stock and invoked some fighting and chaos among adults trying to get one for their kids. Based on this, he wanted to write a dark satire about how marketing could affect children, and these early drafts eventually became Child's Play. The main character Chucky's looks were loosely inspired by the doll My Buddy, and they wanted to call him Buddy in the movie, but couldn't because of licensing with Hasbro, who created the My Buddy doll. The aspects of Chucky coming alive and some of his horrific traits were inspired by an episode of The Twilight Zone called Living Doll, and by a made-for-TV trilogy called Trilogy of Terror, which came out in 1975. In the Twilight Zone episode called Living Doll, a doll called Talkie Tina comes to life. In this case, the wind-up doll is gifted to a young girl named Christy, and Talkie Tina takes a hatred to Christy's stepfather, Eric. The doll starts telling Eric that she wants to kill him and that she hates him. So, of course, Eric goes on to try to kill the doll in numerous ways, none of which are successful. He eventually places the doll in a trash can with the lid weighed down by bricks. Later that night, Eric goes to investigate strange noises in the house, only to trip and fall over Talkie Tina, who is lying on the steps. Eric succumbs to his injuries, and Talkie Tina wins. In a trilogy of terror, which features 3 segments, one of which is called Amelia, a woman buys a wooden doll which contains the spirit of a Zuni hunter named He Who Kills. The doll eventually comes to life and attacks Amelia numerous times until she thinks she kills him by trapping him in an oven and burning him alive. Turns out the black smoke from the oven, breathed in by Amelia, made his spirit come alive in her. Finding out the sources of inspiration for Child's Play and all the Chucky films brought me down a rabbit hole in which a widely spread rumor about Robert the Doll being the inspiration for Chucky was proved to be false. The story of Robert the Doll is actually very interesting, and I will leave an article link below if you want to find out more. Robert the Doll lives on in the East Martello Museum in Key West, Florida, if you ever wanted to pay him a visit. Another popular scary movie franchise, Scream, which originally came out in December 1996, was inspired by the unfortunate events of the Gainesville Ripper, Danny Rolling. Screenwriter Kevin Williamson was home alone one day when he was watching a news segment about the Gainesville Ripper. While watching, he noticed an open window in his living room and realized how easy it would be for someone to come in and harm him. Rather than work himself up and get spooked over the open window, he got to work on a script that would eventually become Scream. While the only similarities between the murderers in Scream, known as Ghostface, and Danny Rolling, known as the Gainesville Ripper, were that of the weapon of choice, which was a knife, and the way that they pose their victims for shock value, the biggest difference is what I find most chilling. In Scream, Ghostface had motives to kill as he was seeking revenge, and the murders were not at random. The Gainesville Ripper, Danny Rolling, claimed he committed the murders just for superstar status, for notoriety, as all his attacks were random. In August 1990, he ended the lives of 5 college students, and it wasn't until 2006, the year that he was executed, that he made a handwritten confession that he killed a family of 3 in their home in Louisiana in 1989, which had been an unsolved mystery for 17 years until he confessed. In May 1990, he even attempted to shoot his father after they got into an argument. Fortunately, his father survived, but lost the use of one of his eyes and one of his ears for the rest of his life. Rowling was at large for these crimes until he was arrested in September 1990 following a botched attempted burglary in Florida. My deepest condolences go out to the families and loved ones of all the victims of Rowling's senseless crimes.